Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Success is a Choice podcasting network. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler. We appreciate everybody joining us, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, or you're listening to this on your favorite audio platform of the podcast. We appreciate it. I think you're really going to like today's guest. If you're a coach, if you're anyone that works with athletics, I think you're going to love today's guest. But before we get into that, I want to remind everybody that today's episode is brought to you by the leadershipplaybook.com. Great teams have great leaders. Everyone wants a great culture. One of the best ways to have a great culture is to have some great teammates, to have some people that are people of influence. And that's where the leadershipplaybook.com can help you out. Use coupon code CHOICE, as in Success is a Choice, to get 25% off at the leadershipplaybook.com. Well, today's guest is one of the OGs when it comes to coaching. When I was a young head coach, I learned so much from this guy. He didn't even know that, but he had a great blog at the time, way back in the day, hoopsthought.blogspot.com. And I got all kinds of knowledge from him. But he is the associate head coach at LSU, fresh off a national championship and fresh off a visit to the White House. He is a longtime basketball coach, both men and women. Coach Bob Starkey, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here, Jamie. Always enjoy and appreciate the moments we get together to talk a little basketball.
Man, it's great. And especially for somebody like me who retired from basketball coaching a few years ago, it's always great to talk with coaches or take a trip down memory lane in basketball. But you're not retired. You're nowhere close. And even if you retire, you're coming back. You're like George Foreman. You can't get rid of basketball. But your blog, I mean, I know that that's more so a thing of the past, or more so not something that you keep necessarily up to date with anymore. But that website is still something that people could go to, hoopsthoughts.blogspot.com. And that's like going down a rabbit hole. Like, if you want, whether you're a basketball coach or not, if you want to get more information about leadership coaching, man, going down that rabbit hole of your blog, of your website is amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. It's funny. Stephen Covey used to tell us that the best way to learn is to teach. And I got so many compliments for the blog, but I promise you, I got more out of it than I think the people who read it. But it's obviously above and beyond X's and O's, though you can find some X's and O's stuff there. There's a great index on the right-hand side that will give you just a litany of categories. If you're looking, I think there's over 3,000 posts on there. So it's a nice little encyclopedia of information. I don't want to take a lot of credit, because basically it's stuff that I've learned from other people and have just shared on that format. So I kind of miss doing it. And I've actually talked with our sports information people about trying to update something similar and get something going again.
Well, I remember as a young coach printing that stuff out on a dot matrix. It was
your agent.
Printing that stuff out and then making some copies and back when it wasn't as easy to make copies, but I would pass that out to our players, put stuff in the locker room, just all kinds of stuff. But that's one of the things, we hear sometimes about these rock stars or these music people. and everybody knows like the front man for the best band or the guitar player for the best band. But sometimes these rock stars, there's people you don't hear about because they're not rock stars, but everybody thinks, hey, this is really the best guitarist. Hey, this is really the best drummer. You may not be this person that's won all these games as a head coach, but if you're in basketball, you know who Bob Starkey is, almost like one of your mentors, Don Meyer. If if you're in the game, if you know coaching, you know these guys, and you've been an unknown mentor to a lot of people. A lot of people have used your blog or followed you on Twitter at Coach Bob Starkey. But just talk a little bit about your progression as a coach, kind of your journey, a 30,000 foot view of your journey in coaching. Because maybe you're not the person that everybody knows on ESPN, but you're the person that coaches know.
Well, I think one of the reasons I can connect with so many coaches is because of my journey. I started out coaching high school basketball in West Virginia. And at that time, the girls played in the fall, the boys played in the winter. So I was coaching both girls and boys at the same time. Then I had an opportunity from there to coach on the collegiate level at an NAIA school, a men's basketball program, West Virginia State College. And it was just a really unique experience. They were 4-24 the year before I got there. I was paid $6,000. They gave me a dorm room and a cafeteria meal card. Our first year, we went 18-10. And the athletic director called me and said, "I'm so sorry, but we've had budget cuts. I got to take your salary down to $4,000, and we can't afford the meal card." And so then we came back that year and went 26-8. And the athletic director called me and said, I'm so embarrassed. Budget cuts. I've got to drop your salary to $2,000. We can't afford the dormitory. So I went, packed my clothes, put them in an old closet in the basketball arena. And the basketball arena, by the way, is really stretching it there. The court wasn't quite 94 foot because there wasn't enough room. We went 31-3 that year, and we're national runner-ups. We had 2 players drafted in the NBA, and this was a non-scholarship school. And it was one of those deals where, gee, Jamie, I know you've been doing it. And, we're painting the locker rooms. We're installing carpet in the offices, and it was simply the best experience I could have starting off. And I wish all coaches would have that. Then I had an opportunity to go to Marshall University on the women's side and work for Judy Southard, who was an outstanding coach. Had actually been Pat Summitt's first assistant coach at Tennessee, and really thought I was going to be there for a while, and was only there for 1 year because Dale Brown called from LSU and asked me to come down to Baton Rouge, and I couldn't pass that up. So I think what's interesting, though, that I would want coaches listening to is I was making $17,000 with a courtesy car at Marshall. And I left that to go to LSU for a $12,000 job. It was the first time they'd had the third assistant that was referred to as restricted earnings. So I took a pay cut, but I thought it was what was best for me. It wasn't about the money. And worked for Dale the next 13 years until he retired. And then Sue Gunner, the legendary women's coach at LSU, said, "Hey, if you like living in Baton Rouge, why don't you come across the hall?" And that ended up being another 12 years. So all in told, I was at LSU for 25 years before had a 1 year stint at Central Florida, then went to Texas A&M for 9 years, which was a really special time. Great school. Left there for Auburn to work for Johnny Harris, who's somebody I respect and admire. And I really told Johnny, hey, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 years, then I'm going to retire. And my wife and I were riding off into the sunset, never ever thinking that Kim Mulkey would offer me a chance to come back to LSU. And so she gave me the call, and I came back. It's been a magical year. You mentioned it earlier. I don't see retirement anytime in the future. We're back at a place we love, and it's just been a great ride.
Well, there's so much to unpack there. It's amazing. You were at LSU with Shaq, with Stanley Roberts, Chris Jackson, some great teams, some great players there. This year you won the national championship at LSU on the women's side. When you look through your career, not just the players you coach, but the players you coached against, is there something that stands out that makes a great player? Because you've dealt with great athletes, but is there something that goes almost good to great, something that takes them from being a great athlete to being a great player, to being a legendary or an elite player, not just someone that can run fast or jump high?
I think there's 2 things that seem to be a common denominator in most of the outstanding players I've coached. The first one is they relish the unrequired work. A lot of players do the unrequired work. The great ones enjoy it. They embrace it. They love the solitude of being in the gym by themselves, and they're intentional and deliberate about what they're doing there. And I think that's just that's a very, very critical thing. And they don't get bored with the process. Kevin Eastman tells this great story about Kobe Bryant, where the rumor was that Kobe would go to the gym in the off season and work on one shot or one move for 2, 3, 4 straight hours. And we got kids today who can't shoot the same shot 3 or 4 times. So Kevin runs into Kobe in the offseason once, said, hey, there's this rumor that you would go to the gym and work on one shot for 2, 3, 4 hours. Is that true? And Kobe said, yes, sir, that's true. And Kevin asked him, well, what is it? 2, 3, 4 hours? What's the magic number? How long do you work on a move? And Kobe said, until. That was it, until. There was no time frame. There was no set of reps. He was going to work until. Now, this is the mindset of the great. Kobe told Kevin, I don't work on a shot until I can make it. I work on a shot till I can't miss it. And that's just a different mindset. It just so I think that the second thing that I found in the best players I've coached is they're highly competitive in all areas, which means we're doing a 2-line shooting drill. That great player is playing it like it's a Final Four. We're working 4-on-4 shell. That great player wants to win that possession. So those are the two things that have really stood out to me the majority of the time about the most special players I've been able to coach.
So you've coached a long time. You've coached a lot of players. People will say kids these days or today's athletes. Are there different ways that we have to coach today's athletes or today's kids? Has it always been a challenge of coaching kids, no matter if you're John Wooden or Kim Mulkey? How is it? What are some tips? What is your take on coaching today's athletes?
Well, first of all, Buzz Williams would tell you this when he speaks to the clinic. Don't be that guy that complains about this generation, because that's always happened. Every generation creates challenges. I heard Tim Elmore tell the story, Jamie, and it blew me away. He said at the beginning of time, man would go down to the river and cup his hands and bring water to his mouth to drink. Then he figured out how to hollow out a piece of wood and scoop some water. Then he figured out the bucket, how we can lower the bucket down. And then next thing, we developed plumbing. Now we can plumb water, and now we got bottled water. And his point is that in millions of years, water really hasn't changed, but packaging and messaging has. So there's no difference in what we're teaching today. We're still teaching fundamentals, discipline, teamwork, unselfish play, but how we communicate that, how we package it has to be different, because it's just a different time. And the coaches that are really successful aren't the ones that are complaining about it. If you're complaining about the NIL, if you're complaining about the portal, if you're complaining about this generation of kids, you're going to have a hard time succeeding. Or you can accept where we're at and find the best ways to maximize your opportunities there.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right in that, because if you take it just a basketball frame of mind, if a coach sits back and says, well, that's not how basketball is played, or you shouldn't be pressing like that, or you shouldn't be running like that, or you shouldn't be running those plays, you're not adapting, you're not adjusting, and you might even be right. But the reality is you're going to be wrong. You're going to be dead right. You're not going to be as successful as you could, because you're not changing with the times, or adapting, I guess I should say.
100%. The best coaches now have flexibility in their system of play. I just got through speaking at a clinic at a Step Up, and C.Y. Young, the men's associate head coach at Missouri, said the most important word in coaching right now is evolution. And coaches have to be able to evolve with the times, or they're going to be left behind in the times.
Now, when you were at LSU coaching men, you had Shaq. Give us a story about Shaq, or talk to us a little bit about Shaq when he came in as a college player. Obviously, he's a legendary one, possibly on the Mount Rushmore of unstoppable players in any sport at any time. Maybe not the best, but unstoppable. Talk to us a little bit about Shaq.
He was an absolutely pleasure to coach, pleasure to be around. I love Shaquille. Still love him to this day. Always sticks his head back in and visits when he gets on campus. A couple of things that I want people to know about Shaquille. Number one, he was an outstanding student. Never had to worry about getting this kid to class. Now, a lot of that had to do with his parents, Sergeant Harris and Lucille. Very academic oriented. Matter of fact, at the end of Shaquille's sophomore year, our staff got together, brought Shaquille in to talk about what it would look like if he went in the draft. And Dale had called general managers and the head of the draft and all that time, and the parents are there, and coach starts talking about, hey, you're going to go in the lottery. You're not going to be the first pick, but you'll be in the lottery. This is what the money will look like. This will be what your signing bonus. And then Shaquille's mom, Lucille, interrupts and stops, says, Coach, I really appreciate you doing all this, but Shaquille doesn't have his degree. He's not going anywhere. So he had that kind of framework and background. The second thing is, he was an amazing teammate. He was an absolutely amazing teammate, and I can't speak to that enough. We had when he was here, and the tragedy was they only got to play 1 year together, but he was with Stanley Roberts, and Stanley was struggling a little bit with his confidence. And Shaquille O'Neal came in to our staff and said, Coach Brown, why don't you start Stanley and bring me off the bench? Maybe that will help Stanley's confidence. It won't affect me. Now, can you imagine a player today volunteering to come off the bench? But that's Shaquille. Matter of fact, Shaquille was here maybe a month and a half ago. And one of the things he wanted to talk to me about was creating some sort of alumni weekend where all these players could come together. He said, Coach, if you'll put it together, he goes, I'll pay for it, but I just want to get all the guys together. He was a great teammate.
Well, just thinking of that, going back to that conversation that we just had, and you talking about NIL or the transfer portal and how coaches just bang their head against the wall or hate that kind of stuff. You might hate it, but there's a lot of people out there that say, well, the only way to play basketball is to have a 7-footer, or to have a post player down low on the block, or to have two people down low on the block. And I was thinking about that. The game has changed so much, but back then when you were coaching at LSU, you had two NBA 7-footers on the same team.
We had three. We had a third kid there named Gert Homick, who ended up being a first-round draft pick for Orlando, and he didn't play much behind Shaquille and Stanley, but once they moved on, he slid into the starting lineup. And like I said, he was a first-round draft pick in Atlanta, so we had three of them at that time.
Amazing. Well, you're fresh off of a national championship with LSU, and you got to visit the White House, which a lot of champions get to do. Take us a little bit behind the scenes. We all see the photo. We all see that you give a jersey to the president and the first lady. What is kind of that day like? What's that experience like for those of us on the outside that aren't on the inner circle of LSU?
Well, first thing that you didn't get to see is we actually went up a day early and got to tour the Capitol and the Capitol grounds with some of the representatives from our state, and got a look at the history and the inner workings, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. I think our kids really enjoyed that. Later that evening, we went to the African American Cultural Museum, spent 2 hours there and could have spent 20. That's a phenomenal place that we want to go back to. There's like 10 stories there, so that's hard to go through. And then we gave the kids a little free time to go out and enjoy the city that night. The next day was the White House visit, and it's for at least for me, goosebumps walking the sidewalk up to the White House and thinking you're getting ready to enter this amazing building, and you go through 3 levels of security. 3 levels of security. So that thing is locked down tight. And then we got a tour of parts of the White House and got to visit with some people right before the photo shoot. The vice president came in and addressed our team, which I thought was outstanding, very special. It was so important for members of our team to see somebody that looked like them, that had risen to such a prominent position. Then after she left, the president, the first lady came in and had some private comments for us, which was great and then awesome. And then we did the walk down the hall and stood in front while the president made some comments and gave him the jersey and everything. It was special. It's one of those things you won't soon forget.
Very cool. Now, this was your first time being there, but your head coach, Kim Mulkey, she's been there a few times. You were telling me this is her fourth president. So she's a veteran of this. She knows what to do more than the president does.
She absolutely does. She absolutely does. And she looks forward to each one. The thing that I love about Kim is these visits have nothing to do with politics for her. She's all about the history of the country and the building and the respect of the office. And she makes sure our kids understand that. But she's won 4 national championships, 3 with Baylor. So she was there with the younger Bush. She was there with President Obama, President Trump, and now President Biden. So she has really had a huge scope of experiences in the White House.
Well, you're with Kim Mulkey now, an amazing coach, 4 national titles, just had a fabulous career as a head coach. You've had a fabulous career as an assistant coach. What do you owe some of the success as a good assistant? Because you wouldn't keep getting hired, especially by someone like Kim Mulkey, if you had a bad reputation. But not everybody can be a good number 2 or a great number 2 or somebody that can be the assistant coach, not looking to knock off the head coach or not looking to prove that they're the man, so to speak. What does it take to be a great number 2?
Well, I think you look at it like you would your team. Your team has to be given roles, and you talk to those players about, know your role, embrace your role, grow your role. I think that's what an assistant coach has to be able to do. I think you have to have a great work ethic. I think you have to be loyal to your head coach, understand how she wants things done. The best advice I ever got was from my junior high coach as I was loading my car up to go to LSU for the first time. His name's Alan Osborne. He's still one of my mentors. But I asked him, I said, hey, I'm getting ready to go work for Dale Brown. Give me some advice. And he said, every morning, wake up and be the assistant coach you would want if you were the head coach. And I try to do that. The best assistant coaches obviously do the things that they're told to do to the best of their ability. But the separator is getting things done without being told. The more things I can keep off Kim's plate, the more she can concentrate on the big picture stuff. And there's so much, Jamy, on a head coach's plate these days, far more than there used to be. So I'm okay with being in the background. Sometimes win a national championship, you get pushed out there a little bit more than you'd like to, but I absolutely enjoy being an assistant coach. The other thing I would suggest is the best assistant coaches are never looking for that next job. I know a lot of people get a job and they're either thinking about another assistant coaching job at a supposedly better school, or they're looking for that head coaching job. This is a truth. I have applied for one job my entire life, and I did not get it. Every other job that I have gotten, Jamy, I've got because somebody has reached out and called me because they've either recognized the job I've done or they've seen something in me that they thought could help their program. I had no relationship with Kim Mulkey other than every now and then we would sit beside each other in July in a gym watching AAU games and just chit chat. I was completely caught off guard when I got the call that she wanted me to join her staff. So I do take pride in doing my job in such a way that people have reached out to me to be a part of their program.
Well, you were in the same state, same conference for quite a while when you were at Texas A&M. So, but word travels. It might appear like it's a big world out there to maybe those of us that aren't in the coaching circles anymore, but it's really a small community. It's a small world.
Well, I think word of mouth is still the best advertisement in a lot of ways. And I, Don Meyer would say, your example is not the main thing. It's the only thing. So I think the way you do your job, the way you go about it, if you do it the right way for the right reasons over a long period of time, people are going to recognize that.
Well, I mentioned at the outset, you're one of the OGs of college coaching, and people know you within the world of coaching. Another person that they know, and somebody that is very near and dear to you, is Don Meyer. You just mentioned him. Over 900 wins at the college level. Amazing coach. One of those people that most people don't think of right away when they think of college coaches, but within the community of coaching, everybody knows Don Meyer. He was one of the first to do camps. One of the first to put out information, put out videos. I still have VHS tapes in my garage. I don't know how many VHS tapes I have of Don Meyer and his instructions and that kind of stuff. What did he mean to you? And what are some of the things you learned from him, lessons you learned from Don Meyer?
Well, first of all, if you have all the videotapes, it's a total of 29 videotapes on every conceivable topic, and every single one of them are still relevant. The thing that made Don special is that he took tremendous pride in coaching coaches. He had an amazing free clinic every fall. He had an amazing coaches academy every summer. I went to several free clinics, went to about 9 of the academies. I'm not sure why, but connected with Don very early to the point where I was a constant visitor at his home, and he would constantly come down and visit me and stay at my home. He would come down and speak at LSU or Texas A&M for me when I asked, and just created a very special relationship. My wife became close to him, and when my wife was going through breast cancer, Don would call her once a week to check on her. The thing that I think I learned the most from Don, or maybe the thing that I appreciate the most, is the more we can help other coaches grow, the more we can help the game grow, the more we can help young people. And I'm not sure anybody has helped coaches more than Don, whether it was junior high coaches, high school coaches, college coaches, pro coaches, coaches on the women's side, coaches on the men's side. He was that guy, and he was just an absolute continual learner. Anybody that saw Don Meyer speak at a clinic also saw that when he was done speaking, him walk up into the bleachers, pull out a notebook, and take note of the other speakers. What he took notes of at first boggled my mind, because I'm like, what could he be writing down that he doesn't already know? I mean, the guy was a walking encyclopedia of basketball, but he was just a continual learner, and all those things still resonate with me today.
Well, we talked Don Meyer. We've talked Kim Mulkey. Dale Brown was a legendary coach at LSU. We talked about some of the great athletes, what makes them great rather than just great athletes, but great players. When you look at coaches, what are some of those things that make great coaches great? We talked a little bit about their ability to adapt earlier, just in general, but are there some other qualities that make a great coach? Because every coach knows the X's and O's. So what's a difference maker?
Well, I think this, and I'm going to use a Don Meyer mantra again. It doesn't matter why you coach, or it doesn't matter where you coach. It matters why. The best coaches are in it to grow people and grow their communities. I learned that from Dale. I learned it from Sue Gunner. Kim Mulkey used the same formula. There's a great book by Frosty Westerling, who was a small-time football coach. I shouldn't say small-time, small school football coach. It was called Make the Big Time Where You're At. And I think the best coaches have that mindset. Every program has something that they're battling. Whether they're like this resource or whatever, but it doesn't matter to them because they have a greater focus of why they're doing it. Another coach that has really, really impacted me a lot is Nick Saban. Nick was the football coach during my first tenure here at LSU, and was always good to our program, helped us with recruiting and shared concepts. And that's where I was first introduced to the importance of the process. And what the process is understanding what you can control and controlling that, and not worrying about other things. Well, other things include winning. Nick never talks to his teams about winning, not games, not championships. He's not into destination goals. He's not into numerical goals. He told us once that only his defensive captain and his quarterback is allowed to look at the scoreboard. because it doesn't matter. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, 1st and 10, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 16, up 6, down 21. It has nothing to do with what you have to do on this particular play. And if you're worried about those other things, then you're not 10 toes in on this play. John Wood never mentioned winning. They were all about the process. Brad Stevens, they asked Brad Stevens once what his goal was. It was to win the next possession. People ask me what my goals are. I have one goal, and that is to be the best version of myself today, because that's the only thing I can do. And now if we do those things on a daily, consistent basis, then the things that we are looking for in terms of success will come our way. But if we're focusing on big picture stuff instead of just locking in on the task at hand, another Don Meyer thing, be an NBA player. NBA stands for next best action. Those are some of the things that I took away from Nick that have, and I think the best coaches are very process oriented. I think they're thinking about today. Guys, here's what we need to do. We need to have a great practice today. That's all we could control.
Well, when I speak at clinics or conferences, I will talk about the process, and obviously it doesn't carry as much weight when Jamy Bechler talks about it as Nick Saban talks about it. But invariably, you get the eye rolls. Invariably, you get the people that are like, "Well, yeah, it's easy to talk about the process when you have the best players out there," or, "Hey, it's easy for Coach Starkey to talk about it, when he has Shaq or Simone Augustus or Sylvia Fowles or Angel Reese or whatever." What would you say to people that are a little skeptical about, well, yeah, it's the process, but really you just have to have more talent than everybody else?
Well, there's several things I'll say. First of all, talent's not enough. I'll tell people this all the time. People look at us. We won a national championship. We went 34-2, and they think we're void of problems. I can tell you we had a lot of problems. Matter of fact, I think the number one prerequisite, if you want to be good in this business, you have to be a problem solver. Forget X's and O's, forget recruiting, forget this, you better be able to solve problems. Being process oriented is very, very difficult, which is why very few coaches are successful at it. But if you sit down and you think about it in its purity, it just makes sense. The only thing you can control is what you're doing at that moment. So why not pour everything into it? And if you're thinking about how many wins you're going to have at the end of the season or how many points you're going to score against these guys, that literally does nothing to move the needle or push your team in the correct movement or position that you need it to go. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. Now, it is difficult. It's hard to not think about winning and losing because, let's be honest, our jobs are based on our ability to win. We cannot impact young people. We cannot change communities unless we win and keep our jobs. But the best way to win is to 100% focus on the things that you can control at that very moment.
Very good. You've had amazing insights today. Coaches, whether they 30-year veterans or rookie coaches, can get a lot out of this. I want to end on this. Let's say there's some young coaches out there. What would be your advice for them? And at the risk of, like, my teenager always says, "Dad, back in my day." You're always saying back in my day, back in my day. But at the risk of, talking about, hey, don't worry about money. I only made this amount of money when I was a young coach. But at the risk of sounding like the old school back in my day guy, what is some advice that you would give to young coaches?
If I was getting this business, I would want to work for somebody that I had great respect for, not just X's and O's. People ask me, what's the most difficult thing for you as an assistant coach? And I would say, because it happened once, to work for somebody who my principles and values didn't align with. Certainly X and O's are going to vary. And I like that. I want to learn. Every head coach I've worked for has done it differently, and I've learned from that. So, and hopefully I've been able to give to that to make it better. So I'm not so much worried about working for somebody who wants to run the same offense and defense, but I want to work for somebody who cares about people, who cares about the kids, who has the same work ethic. I also want somebody that gives me responsibility. I want to work. By the way, that responsibility when I was at West Virginia State College included washing and drying the practice gear every day. And because of that, Jamie, I have the greatest admiration and love for our managers. I take our managers to eat. We have them to our house to decorate our Christmas tree. I understand and have respect for what they do because I had to do it. And it just work. And be intentional and deliberate about your work. This is a great time to be a coach. Like this. God, if I would have been able to listen to your podcast when I was a young coach, we didn't have podcast or YouTube or so many of these resources that are readily available at our fingertips. We had to go to a Converse clinic or buy a book. That was it. Or like you said, one of those VHS tapes. And there's still great resources out there that require some financial obligation. I still read books. I still purchase stuff from Championship Productions, but I've got a podcast list that I go to. I got YouTube channels I subscribe to. And I always ask young coaches, I said, who are you following on social media? Because that to me, by the way, recruiting, when we look at a recruit, we want to find out who they're following. It tells you about them. But if I'm a coach, there's certain people that you need to be following for your growth. I just think that's it. And again, I'm going to sound old school. It's not about the money. Now, you may be able to find. I had one of my former players once who had an opportunity to coach college and didn't like the level, didn't like the money. And this was a couple years back. I said, why don't you take a look at me? Do you think I'm successful? Yeah, coach, you're successful. You think I'm doing pretty good financially? Coach, you're doing great financially. And I gave her my background. This is where I started. This is how I got there. Coaching's not a lottery. You don't buy a ticket and hit the jackpot. And even if you were fortunate enough as a young coach to start off at a Power 5 school with a good salary, it's still about working and doing the grunt work and learning all aspects of it. Coach Wood used to sweep his floor every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And those insights are spot on. And I look at it, I'm like, man, I had to spend so much money when I was coming up to be a good coach or to learn stuff. Now it's easy. You can learn all this stuff without spending any money. I mean, we joke about those VHS tapes, but those things were expensive.
Oh, massively expensive. But like you said, we made those investments though. And I do think there's still things to do. There's still clinics out there. What happens now with the change in the rules now is teams practice year round. For the longest time, I would find out what school was going on that foreign tour in the summer so I could go watch them practice 3 days. Well, now you can go watch any college team practice in the summer because we're all working out. So it amazes me how I don't see anybody in our gym in the summer. Why wouldn't somebody want to come in and watch Kim work out with our team or watch our post play development, our perimeter development? I do it. I go watch other colleges practice to this day. Always looking for, I made this comment on Twitter last night. Somebody asked me, how do you define a successful clinic? And I would say this: with a clinic, with a podcast, with a YouTube show, if I can bring back one thing that makes myself better, my team better, it's a huge success.
Well, definitely, if you want to get free stuff, learn, become a better coach, become a better leader, check out Coach's Twitter, follow him at Coach Bob Starkey, Also, check out his website. Go down that rabbit hole. Check out the topics you want. You will not be sorry. Lots of free stuff. You don't have to go behind the paywall, get any membership. You can just learn from the mind of Coach Bob Starkey. So, Coach, we appreciate all you're doing for young people all through the years and for adding so much to the coaching community. We appreciate that. And to everybody watching this, we appreciate it. Share the show with a coaching friend. Somebody, maybe it's your kid's coach or maybe it's just a coach that you know. Share this. They can get a lot out of this and it helps grow the game as well. But until next time, we appreciate everyone joining us, watching this, listening to this show. Until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?